Before we talk about Nazjatar, I just want you to think about the ocean in World of Warcraft. Not just as a zone or a backdrop, but as something ancient and heavy. The kind of place where history doesn't vanish, it sinks, layers on itself, and waits. The oceans of Azeroth are filled with forgotten wars, lost fleets, and civilizations that never got a proper ending. And far beneath all of that lies Nazjatar. Not a ruin, not a tomb, but a city that endured the end of the world. Nazjatar doesn't feel empty, it feels aware, like it remembers what it used to be, and what it still plans to become. To understand Nazjatar, you first have to imagine Azeroth before it was broken. Before the Sundering shattered the continents and rewrote the entire world. At this time, the Kaldori Empire dominated nearly the entire known world. And at the heart of that empire stood Zinashari, a city designed not just to function, but to impress, to thrive. Every spire, every plaza, every arcane structure was built to project permanence. This was a civilization that believed its rule was inevitable and eternal. And ruling over all of it was Queen Azshara. Her presence shaped the empire as much as its armies or laws did. She wasn't simply a leader, she was the axis around which the Night Elf society revolved. The Well of Eternity sat at the center of Zinashari, radiating raw arcane power. It empowered the Night Elves, shaped their immortality, and altered life all across Azeroth. To most, the well was sacred. To Azshara, it was a resource meant to be perfected and controlled. That difference in perspective would, however, change everything. Queen Azshara is often described as arrogant, but that word doesn't fully capture who she was. Arrogance implies insecurity, and Queen Azshara had none. She didn't believe she might be superior, she believed she was. Surrounding her were the Highborn, an elite caste of arcane practitioners who shared that belief. The proximity to the well and to the Queen convinced them that they were above consequences, above restraint, and above the rest of their people. Magic made everything easy. Problems could be erased, nature could be reshaped, and reality itself bent to their very will. Over time, restraint felt unnecessary to them. It felt even foolish to them. So when whispers began to reach through the Well of Eternity, voices promising greater power and deeper understanding, the Highborn didn't resist, and Azshara didn't question them. To her, the whispers weren't a warning, they were recognition. The whispers that reached Azshara belonged to Sargeras, the Dark Titan. But he didn't come as a conqueror, he came as validation. He spoke to Azshara as an equal, offering her a place in a reshaped cosmos. Azshara didn't believe she was submitting to Sargeras. She believed she was partnering with him, becoming equals. In her mind, she would remain in control even as the universe burned. When the Burning Legion poured into Azeroth, the illusion shattered almost immediately. Demons marched openly across the world, forests burned, cities fell, and the Kaldori Empire began to collapse under the weight of its own ambition. Yet through all of this, Queen Azshara remained calm. She didn't flee, she didn't panic, she stayed in Zinashari, convinced that no matter how violent the transition became, she would emerge unchanged. Then the Well of Eternity collapsed. The Sundering tore Azeroth apart. Continents cracked, oceans surged inward, and Zinashari was dragged beneath the sea as the world screamed around it. And as Queen Azshara and her followers drowned, she refused to accept her ending. From the crushing darkness below, N'Zoth answered Azshara's final reach for power. The old god offered her survival, but that survival came at a cost. Their bodies would be reshaped, their identity would be rewritten, their lives would change. Queen Azshara accepted without hesitation. Her people were transformed into the Naga. They adapted to survive the depths of the ocean. What was lost in their beauty was replaced with resilience and strength. And as Zin-Azshari settled on the ocean floor, it was reborn as Nazjatar. Unlike other fallen civilizations, Nazjatar was never abandoned. Arcane magic held back the sea, creating massive habitable spaces between the waves. Generations of Naga lived and died there without ever seeing the surfaced world. To them, Nazjatar wasn't a punishment. It was proof that their queen Azshara was right, that adaptation was victory. And at the center of it all, Azshara ruled absolutely. Despite her pact with N'Zoth, Azshara never truly considered herself a servant. She doesn't worship the old gods, or surrender to madness. She studies power, contains it, and plans around it. Nazjatar itself reflects her mindset. It is both a kingdom and a containment system, designed to draw on the power of the old gods without fully succumbing to it. Azshara believed she could stand at the center of that balance for eternity. For over 10,000 years, she waited. During Battle for Azeroth, Nazjatar finally rises, not by accident, but by design. Azshara manipulates the Alliance and the Horde into breaking the final seals binding N'Zoth, using them as tools just like every power before. Even when she's defeated in the Eternal Palace, as I showed earlier, Azshara remains composed. She's taken by N'Zoth, but not destroyed. Her story doesn't end, it simply moves deeper into the dark waters of the world of Warcraft. Nazjatar doesn't collapse when Azshara is defeated. There's no great implosion, no tidal wave rushing in to erase the city. The arcane barriers remain, the streets stay intact, life continues in the spaces she built. And that, more than anything, is unsettling. But it's also beautiful in a way. For 10,000 years, Nazjatar existed with a single, unquestioned center of gravity. Every structure, every caste, every ritual was designed around Azshara's will. When she is taken from the Eternal Palace, that gravity vanishes. But the world she shaped doesn't. The Naga do not suddenly become free. They don't abandon the city or free to the surface. They remain because Nazjatar is the only world that they've ever known. What changes is more subtle. Command becomes fractured. The rigid hierarchy Azshara enforced begins to soften at the edges. Without her presence, the power is no longer absolute. It must be claimed, defended, and negotiated. Nazjatar shifts from a perfectly ordered empire into something older and more dangerous, a contested civilization. The old god influence doesn't disappear either. N'Zoth is defeated, but his corruption lingers in the stone, in the water, and in the mind of those who lived closest to his power. Nazjatar was never just a city. It was a pressure vessel, holding forces that do not simply disperse when the seal is broken. And yet, the city endures. Arcane systems continue to hold back the sea. Naga still patrol ancient streets. Rituals continue, altered, but not abandoned completely. The ruins of Zin-Azshari remain standing beneath the waves, neither fully alive nor truly dead. Nazjatar becomes something rare in Azeroth's history, a fallen empire that was never destroyed. It is a place without a ruler, without certainty, but not without purpose. And that may be its most dangerous form. Nazjatar isn't just a location. It's a warning. A reminder of what happens when power and certainty exist without humanity. Queen Azshara still lives on, Nazjatar still stands, and beneath the waves, an empire continues to wait for the tide to turn. Because some civilizations don't fall, they sink and endure. So think of Nazjatar as a relic of the past, a place cursed to be frozen in place for all of eternity.